Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this June 16th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. We're glad that you are here with us. Hey, if you want to find our content, go to EOA.network. That takes you to a link tree where you can find the location of our Facebook, our website, our Roku channel, our Instagram, and then also where all of these episodes end up on a podcast network so that you can listen to them at night to put yourself to sleep, especially Kyle's sports segment. That's what. Anyhow, so glad you're here with us. Here in a little bit, we are going to have Nick Vora and JB Brock talking to us about fire and so on and so forth. Nick Vora has been with us here quite a bit. JB Brock works for the Oregon Department of Forestry. And we're going to be talking about how they interface with each other and so on and so forth. So, how are you, man?
Morning. Yeah, sports is going to put people to sleep.
Yeah,
and you talking to a commissioner about a budget somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit the hot button.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about putting people to sleep, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah.
And sometimes I turn it on.
And you're over there. And you're over there like, yeah, I'm just kidding. It's like. Yeah, anyhow, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm great.
Are you loving this warm weather?
I'm great. Yeah, it's going to get warmer too.
Oh.
It's just going to keep getting warmer and warmer.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Everybody knows I love the heat. I'm all for it.
Yeah. What's up? What's going on? Anything new?
No. Just it's kind of slow right now, which is kind of good. Just getting caught up and getting ready for Shrine. That's the next big thing.
Yeah.
Nothing really new. School's out. It's kind of wild. Another year gone by. I mean, these kids are graduating, and I'm like thinking about this year's senior class. I remember taking pictures of some of them when they were in like 5th grade, 4th grade. Yeah, I remember people telling me like, "Hey, this person's going to be a really good athlete when they get older," and now they're gone. It's making me feel old.
That's right. That's probably what they said about you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, hey, you want to do sports?
Do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit. Just when you think Hobby Habit has everything, they go and pull this one. They introduced sports cards finally. Joe brought in Topps Chrome football, and they're going to go fast. I mean, this is a hot product. They're blaster boxes. It's awesome. I've been telling him to do this for like 5 years, and he finally pulled the trigger on it. It's in stock now at 411 Fur in LeGrand. Get down there and try to pull a monster. I mean, there's some huge cards in this product, and it's kind of almost like gambling in a sense, but at the same time, there are still people that just collect to collect. So, yeah, this is an awesome product. I'm sure he's got a really good price on it. 411 First Street in LeGrand. Hobby had it just for the fun of it. LeGrand Legion Baseball has some home games this weekend. They don't have times on them yet. They're on the 18th and 19th. The times will be just still say to be announced. I'll let you guys know as soon as I get the times. Peyton Daggett represented the LHS on the East All-Star team in the OBCA All-Star Series over the weekend. The East won. They won the championship, and that consisted of a girl from Baker, some girls from Vail, and then Peyton Daggett. I don't know why that picture cuts her off in that particular picture, but the pictures came from her dad, Sean. I don't know how that picture cut him off. I think it might have cut him off on Instagram too. I didn't even notice, and usually I notice that kind of stuff. Moving on, the baseball all-stars for the weekend. 5 seniors on the OBCA South team. How do these guys end up on the South team? I don't understand. But that's an awful lot of all-stars for a team that didn't even win their league. I don't know how that happens, but it's cool. Either way, Savon Chaub, Dean Finley, Bregan Anderson, Ryder McElmoyle, and Landon Hood from LeGrand all made that all-star series. They went 1-2 over the weekend. That team had a couple Pendleton guys and a couple Baker guys, so the GOL was well represented. And then finally, Blake Hildebrandt represented the Tigers in the OBCA All-Star Classic as well. He was on the East team, and the East team was actually coached by an EOU alumni, Cole Ashby, which is kind of cool. And his mom, Sheree Wong, sent me the picture from down there. As soon as I start putting these out, the coaches don't send me anything when it comes to this. Like, if I was a coach, I'd be telling the media, like, hey, my kids are all-stars. Here. But I don't hear anything. I hear this from parents. And so if you have a kid that's an all-star, I'll gladly talk about them and post a picture and give you credit for the picture. And I just need to get it because the coaches aren't reaching out. And I mean, I know they're busy and it's summertime. They probably don't even really look at it like that. But if the coaches are listening, hey, if you got an all-star kid, let me know about it and I'll talk about them. I mean, that's important stuff. And these kids have a reason to be proud and celebrated. Shrine. Okay, let's check this out real quick. Year 6 of us televising, well, streaming the Shrine game is almost upon us. It's crazy. It's a little over a month away, and it's the same cast when it comes to play-by-play in color. Willie Mack, who's William McGoffin, and me, and this will be year 6 of us doing it together. It's really exciting. This year, one of my friends has a kid in the game, and there's been ties to the game every year for me. But it's kind of cool because he's also coaching. He's an assistant coach on the East team. So I'm going to sit down with him and interview him during that week before the game where the players are here and we're doing player intros and all that. And I'll get that out, probably hoping to get that out right before the game. And that'll be really cool. He's an EOU alumni. His son, Cole Tolan, Jake Tolan, is the coach. And I mean, his dad's a Hall of Famer at EOU. His wife's a Hall of Famer at EOU. Yeah, he grew up here. He played football at EOU. He's. I mean, I would consider him a local legend myself. It's going to be pretty cool, pretty fun, and I'm super excited about Shrine this year. AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it.
Good stuff. Thanks, man.
Yep.
All right, let's look outside, and it's beautiful out there today. Beautiful morning, yeah. So, and let's look at that graphic, Bennett. So, 91 today, 82, 85, 92. Man, it's going to be warm and dry for the next several days, which leads into the fire conversation we're going to have, right? So, yeah, it's going to be beautiful. Get out there and enjoy it. Are we to the longest day yet in summer? Has that happened yet?
No, I think it's like June 22nd or something like that.
So it's not too far away. So
a week.
Yeah.
Bud Forrest says a shout out for Corbin McNeil. He's headed to the Nationals after he took second in state as a freshman from Cove. He will be rowing the mile at Nationals. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you, Bud, for giving us that information. So, all right, hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right, and we are back with Nick and JB. How are you guys?
Good.
You guys are like everything emergency. I mean, you know. So JB, you were in Nick's position for how many years?
I did. I was in the emergency management program for 17 years.
Wow. Okay.
22 years total at the county. Started in land use planning.
Wow. Okay. Wow. And then how long ago did you do something else and handed the reins to Nick?
About 5 years ago.
It was, June of 21.
Yeah,
Okay.
about 5 years ago, I left emergency management with the county and went over to the Oregon Department of Forestry.
Okay. So are you guys different than each other? I mean, how would you classify yourselves as being?
I'm a lumper and Nick's a splitter. That's kind of how we classify
Yeah.
things. I'm more of a, big picture, that'll work.
Yeah.
Nick's very detail oriented.
Yeah.
How's that? You buy that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's a lumper? Like you lump things
yeah,
together?
all these things are similar. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Yeah, it's going to work out.
Yeah, Nick's a splitter. This is this, this is this. But,
Yeah.
I think that the similarities, we both have very broad interests
Right, yeah.
in emergency management. Both, went into the law enforcement side of things, as well as the fire side of things,
Yeah.
as well as the EMS side of things.
Yeah.
So, as an emergency manager, you interact with all of the different emergency response entities, and so it's important to have an understanding. And both of us took a very similar tact of, well, maybe I'll just do that for a while, and then I'll be able to figure out how to best support.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm similar to you in the sense that kind of a big picture person, and I zoom in onto things when I need to, and so. But I've really enjoyed our relationship with Nick because he is so different than I.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much detail to what it is that you do on a daily basis, Nick. Yeah. So.
A lot of balls in the air.
Yes.
I was happy to hand that over to Nick. 17 years is quite a while to do that, and so I was ready to focus on one thing, to focus more on the wildland fire side of things, and let him keep all the balls in the air.
Yeah. Okay. So, help me understand what Oregon Department of Forestry is and how it's different from all of the other forestry entities out there. Yeah.
So, Oregon Department of Forestry protects private forest lands primarily. We do also protect some grazing lands as well, but it's really connected to that private forestry piece. And so, as opposed to, say, the Forest Service, which is your public land, they protect the National Forest System. We really focus on the private forest land piece.
Okay. So, and how do you, and are you delineating that literally by property lines?
Absolutely. We actually go through what we call a forest land assessment. It's done on a fairly regular basis. I don't remember the exact timelines.
Yeah.
Let's say, just for sake of discussion, every 5 years we go through and we do a delineation of the land that we should be protecting.
Okay.
And so, because we protect private land, the relationship's a little bit different. As we were discussing earlier, we're essentially a wildland fire department. Okay. Our objective is to minimize acres burned, catch fires as small as we can. It's really not a fire management. It's really more of a fire department.
Can you explain what private land is, please?
Essentially, privately owned.
So like people's land.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And as we're actually supported by the landowners, about 50% of our budget is paid directly by the landowners that we protect.
Through taxes?
Through it's assessment. Technically, it's not a tax, but it's essentially yes.
Gotcha.
And so that is our focus. The other 50%, and those are rough numbers.
Yeah.
Is general fund through the state of Oregon, and so it creates a little bit different relationship because we're very responsible to our landowners. We have a board that actually evaluates our budget annually, and it's a much more direct relationship.
So like LeGrand has a fire department. They take care of LeGrand. Okay. Right. And then outside of that, locally here, we have fire districts.
Yes.
Okay. So then anything that's not in the LeGrand area, the fire districts take care of. And they have They have properties and taxes come from those properties and help fund that thing. Okay, and so then further out from that is you guys, right?
Correct.
I mean, am I kind of getting, now when you have a big fire, everybody's like, come
Absolutely.
on. Yeah, but I mean, is that a good descriptor of kind of?
I'd say that's roughly, that's pretty accurate. We do share some protection with the rurals. Our focus is exclusively wildland, right? And so we don't do structural protection. That requires specialized gears,
Okay.
SCBAs, engines,
Okay.
bigger engines, type
Well,
1
and
engines.
in the same way, there's a lot of fired local people. They don't do
Right.
rural. I mean, they don't. Right.
We focus more on the larger property owners. We certainly do have smaller property owners as well, but broadly, it's more of a landscape look.
Okay.
We do have what's called dual protected land, which is land that we protect with the rurals.
Okay.
So there is some overlap there, but our focus is slightly different, and we bring different tools to the table, and I think that's a key thing. When you see the aircraft flying, that's more of an ODF thing, less of a rural thing.
Okay.
And they bring tenders and larger engines, and so we have different tools that we both bring to the fight. One of our primary charges as the Oregon Department of Forestry is, and it's statutory, we are charged with facilitating the complete and coordinated system. So that's everything from the Forest Service down to the rural firefighters. We're sort of the ones in the middle that help facilitate that whole program and bring it all together when it's needed in those large fires like you're talking about. And in Union County, I think that it's a good example. You see a big fire, there'll be red engines, being the rural engines, there'll be green engines being the Forest Service engines, and there'll be our engines, which are the white ones, and all working together.
Interesting. Okay. So then, from the state standpoint, it's kind of like the state police. The state police is like it's their responsibility to flow where everything is not where if there's a gap. Yeah, and so
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good metaphor. I
Okay.
think that's pretty solid. We have a district also, but
Okay.
if the rurals need help, we go onto their side of the fence. If our federal partners need help, we go onto the federal land, and so we flow where needed. That's a pretty solid metaphor.
okay. So I have some family they live up on Mount Emily, but they're out of the rural district, and so I mean there's some responsibility. Some of those owners feel like if there's a fire, we got to put it out ourselves.
That would be in my protection.
Okay, thank
If
you.
it's private land,
Okay.
that would be in my protection.
Okay, so they're not totally alone.
Not totally alone. There's a little bit of a nuance there when it comes to the structure versus the wildland.
Okay,
right?
got it.
So
okay.
that's the one thing, essentially our statutory responsibility is to protect the land. That's what we do as the Oregon
Okay.
Department of Forestry. So, we certainly encourage folks to get in, to be in a rural district.
Right.
Because that is a different focus. They're gonna bring the tools to put that structure out. We're gonna do our best to prevent that structure from catching on fire and externally be able to do what we can, but we can't go in, we don't have the SCBAs.
Okay.
That's something
Okay.
that we don't do.
So if you're there and you're putting out a fire in the forest and the structure's on fire, you're going to be like,
We'll do our best.
you're going to point the hose at the structure too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. All right, interesting. Okay, so I don't know. So Nick, how do you guys, tell me how you interface. And we talked a little bit about this beforehand. Because a lot of, you're the Union County Emergency Manager, so a lot of that stuff comes to you. So help me with that.
So there's a lot of coordination. My job, as we were discussing earlier, is from dealing with the public, a lot of being that switchboard. I, as one person, can only do so much, and if I get a phone call from someone with a specific question or a specific need, oftentimes I am directing them to the most appropriate resource or agency to address their concerns. So if someone's calling me concerned about maybe bark beetles on their trees, I'll direct them to Oregon Department of Forestry forester. If they're concerned about fuel loading around their homes or on their private property, would direct them to JB. Or if they're looking to collaborate with their neighbors to start a Firewise community to to community-based risk reduction, and to a FireWise coordinator. So a lot of traffic management and control as far as getting people to the right place. As far as coordinating between our agencies, as JB had mentioned previously in the summertime, we're coordinating constantly with either with projects that are going on, with trainings that we're doing, and trainings is year-round, projects is year-round, but with emergency responses, if there's something that comes into County 911 and I get details on the call, I'll share that with JB and his staff, so they get a heads up as that call is coming into their dispatch center, and vice versa. And also with resource availability, if there's something that I have that they can use, or an example we could talk about later as far as like evacuation zones, and the tool that the county creates and maintains, but then it allows us to communicate on a fire to reduce the possibility of miscommunicating areas as far as that goes. So there's a lot of almost continuous back and forth between the county and ODF, not just with emergency responses, but everything from projects, planning, public information officers with our Joint Information Center, all kinds of stuff.
So I know, Nick, one of your strengths is communication, and communication between different agencies. So have you, since you've been in this job, I mean, and maybe JB, this would be a good question. I mean, have you been able to get some? Are you guys more connected because of some of those efforts that?
I think that would be true. I obviously have a very intimate understanding of Nick's job,
Yeah.
And roles and responsibilities. I also spent a lot of time as a volunteer firefighter,
Right.
With LeGrand Rural. I was a lieutenant there, so I know all the chiefs. I know a lot of the
Right.
players, and so yeah, I think we've certainly. It was in a good spot when I got it.
Right,
and,
but the technology changes just
yeah,
like
and the people change too,
Right,
right?
right,
You know,
yeah.
people move on, but the objective is always continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as good as things are, and I think we're within Northeast Oregon, we have great relationships, across the board, from our federal partners to our local partners. I think it's one of those things that necessity kind of pushes us to have better relationships, because we don't have as much stuff.
Right.
Right. We don't have as many engines. We don't have as many people as some of our larger areas. But I think in the net, that's actually a positive, because we have to work together.
Yeah.
We don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
None of us individually can do it on our own. It's just we don't have enough things to accomplish the mission. So we're forced to work together. But I think that really, because we've been doing that for so long, we have great relationships. There's none of the turf wars or
Right.
this is mine, that's yours. It's more of a, hey, I got a problem. Everybody that can help me solve it, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think we see that. I think that we have a lot of examples of that. As we talked about earlier, we had 3 fires this week, and on those fires, we had state, federal, and local firefighters all on those fires.
Yeah.
All rowing in the same direction, pushing the same mission, and accomplishing the task.
Yeah.
So I think it's ultimately a strength that we have as a community, how well we do work together.
Yeah. How do you? 2 questions. One, where are you located at? Where is Oregon Department of Forestry?
So Oregon Department of Forestry is kind of on the east end of town, over by Les Schwab, Bimart. We kind of sit between
Yeah.
between the two. We've got
Okay.
our compound over there.
Okay, yeah, and I've seen. Okay, and then how do you guys, if there's an incident, or if there's a fire, somebody has got to call it their fire. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, somebody is the central.
Sure.
How
So-
is that decided? Yeah.
So we all have jurisdictional boundaries, right?
Okay.
But initially, it's first on scene.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whose it is. First on scene is going to take command of the fire.
Got it.
Be that a federal fire with a rural engine, or a federal fire with a state engine, or a state fire with a federal engine. So
Right.
first on scene
Right.
runs the fire. That's the standard rule. As the fire develops, we may transition command. We may not. It all comes down to what makes sense. based on qualifications, based on dirt, based on all of those things. Now, ultimately, to your point, there is a jurisdictional agency that's responsible for the fire. And largely that comes down to paying the bill
Right.
a lot of times. But, you know, that's all delineated by whose dirt you're on, whose district it is. Now, with us, we have a lot of shared, right? And so we may have a fire that is partially on federal ground and partially on private ground that we protect. And so there may be a cost share in there. They may, and it could be based on acreage. You know, say 60% of the fire is on federal ground and 40% on state protected ground. Then that may be how we split the bill. So
Okay, so help me understand that. Then, because all of those agencies are already paid for. I mean, you know, whoever it might be. So then how do you calculate what the bill is? What is, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I do, and it's a simple question that can be a complex answer.
Well, and what I mean is, how do you decide what isn't paid for by default?
Sure.
Yeah.
So typically it's the things that we're ordering in addition.
Like you got to have an airplane, or
You gotta have an air attack, you know,
Okay.
2 single-engine air tankers, 2 helicopters. We're calling in crews
Got it.
from
Okay.
the outside. You know, these are things above and beyond your essentially your initial attack resources.
Right.
What we pay for, you know, within our budget, what the landowners are paying for, is really that initial attack piece. They're paying for us to be ready to respond to a fire.
There's a fire. Hopefully, you go out there, you get it put out.
Yeah, best case scenario, we go out with an engine or 2, we put it out, and everybody goes home and everything's great, right?
Which I mean, add is the vast majority of,
Okay.
of fires.
Over
that we
90%.
responded to.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah, over
What-
90%.
the fires that make the news are the ones that get
Right.
larger.
Right. Like
but,
I had no idea there were 3 fires last week.
But our local in Northeast Oregon, our local initial attack resources with our federal partners and Oregon Department of Forestry in combination with the rules do an incredible job with initial attack. Particularly with a lot of fires in pretty difficult to reach places, where we have a lot of fires that are started by lightning, in contrast to a lot of other parts of the U.S. where the majority of fires are human caused. And our wildland fire resources do an outstanding job with jumping on fires and keeping them small and in turn very cost efficient. So sorry for interrupting.
No worries. If you're going to say nice things, you can interrupt. So, you know, but inevitably, you know, bad fire on a bad day, right? There are some that get away. And that's when you get more into that large project fire. You know, we have finance people. Our administrator, Lisa Shepard, is our admin at our office. She's a finance section chief. And so what that means is her role is to track the costs of fires. And so as we're, you know, not only are we talking about, you know, we talked about resources, crews, there's also food and water and fuel. And as we know, all of those things cost money. And so, you know, that's above and beyond sort of that initial attack element. And so that's where you get into how are we going to split this up? And, you know, there's essentially we go into an agreement with the partners of, okay, here's how we think we can divide this. Here's what we think is fair. And that's a challenge that's ongoing.
Well, but it's mostly a negotiation after the fact, right?
Well, that's where I was headed. Is
Right,
exactly
yeah.
that. They, you know, we're still working on fires that happened last year because costs are still coming in, and you know our finance folks like to point out that they fight fire year round. You know, because once the snow flies, we're the operation side of the
Right,
house.
yeah.
We're done. The finance folks, their challenges go on, and you know, timekeeping and all of the things.
Right, because they're looking at the cost. This amount of money was spent on this fire. That vendor, whoever it was, had to get paid.
Yeah.
And so they got paid. And so then somebody's like, this blew up our budget. You know, who else can contribute to this incident to help make it? Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we had to go back to the legislature because of the cost of the fire season. You know, it would be the 2024 fire season was the largest in Northeast Oregon history. We burnt more acres than I believe the entire state of Oregon. It was the largest in Oregon history. And so, that's catastrophic fire season.
Right.
And created a lot of challenges. And again, those finance people, it was a tremendous challenge for them.
Yeah, well, it's not like you can tell a vendor, like, yeah, we'll pay you when we get paid.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
It was a huge challenge,
Yeah.
and that's something that we had to work through. And there was some legislation that came down after the fact. They're trying to get some more funding into that system, but it's an ongoing challenge because our fire seasons, they're not getting shorter. The fires aren't getting smaller in a broad sense, and so it's a challenge we continue with.
Wow. So let's talk about Firewise. We've talked a lot about property owning. It's mitigating around their buildings and structures and so on. But Firewise is a new word for me. So talk to me about
so
who that is.
Firewise was developed by NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association. Forget if it's Protection or Prevention Association, but anyway, NFPA is a national organization that develops primarily standards for fire agencies on what type of ladders they have and things like that. But they also went into community-based fire risk reduction and created a program called Firewise. So it's a voluntary program that communities can sign up for, essentially. And then there's some things that materials and things that are provided to them when they register as a Firewise community. And there's also certain requirements of that as far as the amount of work hours that the community as a whole puts in, and the components of each member of that community that they contribute. And the benefits are that it's neighbors working with neighbors. There's no regulatory agency involved. So it's community-driven, community-led, and we provide support to it. So the county provides support in some forms, the state provides support in other forms. And in Union County, we have a Firewise coordinator. So Heather Murphy is our new Firewise coordinator. She works at the Union Soil and Water Conservation District office. And her role is herding the cats, so to speak, of all the people motivated in different directions, but ultimately getting them on a common trajectory in an area, working together to improve essentially their neighborhood, to make it more resistant and resilient to impacts of the fire.
Okay. And I told you a story where my wife's family has a cabin up at Wallowa Lake, and recently we had a conversation with one of those community leaders, and it felt a little bit like a covenant. When a neighborhood has covenants, it's like you don't leave your garbage cans out, and it was a little bit. And I guess what I couldn't understand, and maybe this would be a question for Heather at some point, is like, what is? Nobody wants their place to burn down. And so there's there's the ultimate incentive of let's just prevent stuff from burning, okay? And so, but it's like, is there an additional, do you get a medal if your community is fire? Because it doesn't affect insurance. Insurance doesn't. So help me understand that. So
a lot of the things that Firewise community encourages people to do, and as far as the defensible space efforts that they do, those things are, what the Firewise stamp, depending on the insurance company, I'm not sure as far as, there may be some companies that look at it, others may not care at all.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're doing is something like the type of roof that you have, the type of siding that you have, how if you have vegetation that's close to the house, if you have screened crawl spaces and screened attics, things like that. Those are things that a lot of insurance companies do care about on the specific structure they're insuring. So Firewise is a way to coordinate that. Also, what a lot of Firewise communities do is things like cleanup days, where the community gets together, rents a wood chipper, and then when you're cleaning up your property, rather than someone paying a couple $100s for themselves, well, now there's a wood chipper. You can bring your stuff down to the end of the driveway. It gets chipped, hauled off. So things like that, as far as neighbors coming together to work in common areas, in rights of way, things like that that otherwise might be subject to the tragedy of the commons, so to speak, can be maintained by the community. And also just peer pressure from neighbors. You see everyone else's place looking great and your place doesn't, incentive to...
Right.
I would add to that, though, there's an operational piece to this as well, because the work that's being promoted is really giving us, the firefighter, an opportunity to be successful. If there's a fire in that community and the Firewise work has been done,
Right.
there's a better chance that we're going to be successful in defending that house. That's really the end goal. There's a very practical piece to this.
Okay.
I think the other piece of it that I'd throw out is if you have, say a 20-acre property in the middle of that Firewise community that hasn't done any work, that can be your source too. And so that's sort of that community piece of, if we can get all of these in decent shape, one, we don't have that potential, fire source that we're not going to be successful at because the work hasn't been done. But additionally, if that fire is coming from outside in versus inside out, if that type of work has been done, we have a better opportunity to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and I totally understand that. And that's really good information to have. But it's like, if somebody's going to have teeth, it should be a government. Not necessarily, and you understand. So, I get peer pressure and all of that. And certainly, if you're trying to mitigate structure, and this is kind of probably more your area. If you're trying to mitigate risk in the county, then, there should be an ordinance, and maybe there already is. There's an ordinance where the county can say, dude, you got to take care of your property because there's the ability of you're going to endanger somebody else.
I would throw out, I guess I would consider this a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Certainly there is that piece, and the regulation piece, if we go sort of historically, has been a big challenge. Mm-hmm. There's been some efforts that I'd say that haven't gone particularly well broadly across the state of Oregon.
You may remember the wildfire risk map that a lot of people were...
Well, right, and the insurance took advantage of that.
And
Yeah.
so the entire purpose of creating that was to attempt to regulate risk and enforce a code on structures and how as far as ignition zone, defensible space, that type of thing. That was the entire purpose behind that. So you saw how that went. So that would be like if the county were to try and create something, we would have to have some way to standardize to say whether or not your property is at risk. And now we would have a map, the same thing as that map that would be published and available.
Right.
And then an insurance company could say, well, Union County says that your property is in the top 75th percentile for risk based on their ordinance map. And, so it would create the exact same problem.
So this is kind of, Firewise is kind of the opposite approach of, hey, here's the tools, on a community level. If you're interested in this, these are the tools that could allow you to be successful. And it really is more of a community-driven and even at the fundamental level, a landowner-driven, if you want to be successful, here are the tools that will allow you to do that.
And all of that I love. I'm trying to get my head around the stamp of approval from Firewise, and the inventory of hours, how much you've spent on, anyhow, the independent part of me is like, okay, if I'm going to live in a covenant, I'm going to know ahead of time when I'm going to sign up, and this is what I'm going to do. Or, anyhow, you kind of...
Although it may feel that way, it is non-regulatory. It really is.
No.
But what does it gain you? I think that I would point you just to the practical side of things.
No, and I totally get that. I'm just saying, I guess my problem is...
I get you.
My problem is that it feels regulatory, but it's not.
I'm an Eastern Oregonian
yeah,
too.
yeah,
I
I know.
understand. I understand what you're saying. You don't need to convince
yeah,
me.
no, it's like, I mean, it's like if the neighbor came over and be like, hey, you know, your grass has gone to seed and your weeds are now blowing into my yard. I'd be like, I mean, I would listen, but at some point it'd be like, dude, it's my yard, you know. And so anyhow.
I understand.
Yeah, no. Well, I don't know. Okay, so Nick, tell me. I know you brought JB as a guest this morning. This was your slot. I mean, talk to me about what's important about this relationship.
So, as JB had mentioned previously, none of us in Northeast Oregon, as far as agencies or organizations, have enough resources internally to do everything that we need to do. And we rely on each other to be fully successful. And going into fire season, as far as talking about some of the different things we do together and as far as just operationally how we work, thought would be very relevant and timely. As far as that goes, and just using one example outside of just fire suppression. So from a public information standpoint, we have the Northeast Oregon Joint Information Center, or really a joint information system, where we don't have to have people physically co-locate, but public information staff that work together. And so if there is a fire or an incident, maybe there's not a fire. It could be something internal to the city of LeGrand or to Union County. We have these partnerships where we can bring in staff like, hey, Forest Service, Oregon Department of Forestry, we have an emergency right now. Might have nothing to do with what your day job is, but we could really use 2 extra public information officers to help. And they gladly send resources over to help. Then there's a fire, and they need some extra support. We send resources their way. And you need a space, we'll provide a space. You need an extra generator for something, I have one. Oh, I need an extra set of something else. JB has it. There's a huge amount of sharing that goes on. And if it didn't happen, the demand that all of us would have to ask from general fund budgets would be astronomical and frankly impossible.
Right.
I think there's certainly a timing piece to this as well. You know, just looking at conditions. You know, this summer we had, one of our worst snowpacks we've had recently. We just basically didn't get snow this year.
Zero.
Right. We got some moisture, but enough to make the grass grow. Which for us is a concern. And we're really kind of heading into fire season. What we're kind of seeing on the ground is we're about 4 to 6 weeks ahead of where we should be. Our conditions right now
So it's 4 to 6 weeks drier than what it should
mid-July.
be.
Yeah, it's
right.
mid-July. That's kind of how we're seeing it right now.
Yeah.
And,
You can feel it too. I mean, there's no
and you
doubt.
can see it.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
we're looking at the hills around that, mid-June normally very green, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The green's going away quick this
Right.
year. We've got fire school going on right now at Camp Elkanah, and I drove up there yesterday, and the Grand Ron River Canyon, she looks dry.
Not a lot of water.
Yeah, it's concerning. And so, I think part of the reason that, Nick wanted me to come today is, we're lining up, and things could change, right? Eastern Oregon weather, who knows? But right now, it's, as you guys said earlier, hot and dry is what we're seeing. And we're already ahead. And so, certainly Nick talked about the fact that we have quite a few lightning fires, but we have quite a few human-caused fires as well, and those are preventable. And so, really encouraging folks, to track the fire restrictions and understand where we are. It's looking likely that we're headed towards our high fire danger, within the next week or so. And so, certainly that's concerning this early. We're lining up for what could be a difficult fire season, and additionally what could be a very long fire season. And so, really encouraging folks to pay attention to those regulations.
There's little things people can do too. Like, you don't even think about it. That over in Dallas, like probably 10 years ago, a dude was shooting tracer rounds
Right.
into a tree and lit the whole side of the mountain on fire, and he ended up having to pay a lot of money for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, cost recovery is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just got to be like, you got to think about stuff when you're out in the forest doing things.
We are statutorily mandated to seek cost recovery if it's a human-caused fire, which makes sense, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, we don't want to put that burden on the landowners that support us, and so, you know, there's a lot of videos on YouTube where similar, you know, tracer rounds or the gender reveal parties.
Yeah, you might not even think about that though if you're in the moment and you're doing stuff. So it's like super important to really think about what you're doing when you're out in the wild.
It really is. In years like this, it's even more important because, you know, one of my big concerns, just seeing kind of conditions, you know, it's normal for us to have fires this time of year, but they're generally a tenth to a quarter acre. Not a big deal. We go out, we put them out, not a huge issue. Our early fires this year, they haven't been a tenth to a quarter. They've been minimum a half acre up to 2 acres. In June,
that's because of how dry it is.
That's because of how dry it is. Yeah, you know, our larger fuels, what we call our 1,000-hour fuels, think big logs, things like this, they're receptive to fire right now. They're burning. That's not normal for us. Normally, that's not true.
That they're not.
Normally, that's not true until July, August, and that's true now. So once our live fuels turn, which is your brush and those kind of things, it's going to be a challenging fire season.
So once we hit July, August, what happens to the fuels? They're just so dry that.
Absolutely. So you know, we track what are our dead fuel moistures, which are our dead and down, you know, the grass when it goes dormant, those type of things. And then we track our live fuel moistures, which is more your brush and your trees. Once, and again, we're setting up to do this early, once those live fuels are available, meaning that they're willing to burn, which we're anticipating is going to happen earlier, essentially everything's available to burn at that point. And so, you know, that's, from a duration perspective of fire season, you know, that's happening earlier. I'm anticipating we could have bigger fires earlier. And then, you know, there's degrees. You know, live fuel moistures are on an arc. We're looking like with the low soil moisture we have because we didn't have snow, that those live fuels are going to be very dry. And so, you know, that's a concern. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, really kind of pitching for the public's help. You know, those human-caused fires are something that we, as a whole, can control.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, hoping that if we just have to deal with the lightning fires, we can be more successful.
When you talk about downed fuel, and I don't know if you know that, if you have the information or not, but like it seems to me like we have a lot of down fuel.
Oh, sure.
A lot. Like what, in comparison to like other areas, how are we really high on down fuel? Because when I go out in the mountains, I feel like I'm overwhelmed by stuff on the ground.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's more of a forester question than a fire guy question.
Right.
So first of all, I'll give that caveat.
Right.
You know, our broader, you know, our forests are not in a good condition. I think that's essentially what you're talking about. You know, there's a lot of reasons for that, and I don't want to. I don't want to go into all the reasons for that. But
as somebody who is essentially in
we
charge
have to
of
deal with
taking
the
care
result.
you have to deal with it.
Right, we have to deal with the result, and so I think it's certainly an inarguable fact that, you know, our forests are not in a natural condition, and so certainly, you know, that makes the term that we use is fires are resistive to control.
So when you say not in a natural, meaning they haven't naturally burned and cleared themselves out,
right.
Or how does that, or what do you?
All of the above.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. Yeah.
we're not in there logging as much as we were.
Okay.
You know,
We're
fire
not
has
clearing.
a natural role in the ecosystem.
Okay.
You know, we also used to burn those forest units when we logged them. You know, we still do that on the private side. You know, and so there's a lot of challenges there across the board.
Okay, but they're loaded up.
They're loaded.
Yeah,
you know,
they're locked and loaded, ready
and
to
so,
explode.
you know, fire does have a natural role in the ecosystem. You know, there's statistically a fire return interval where maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, a fire would exist. with the current condition of the forest, that that fire return interval has been interrupted, and the fuels are in the conditions that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so from a end user perspective, from the person who has to go out and fight the fire, it makes our fires highly resistant to control.
Right.
We don't have a lot of the natural fuel breaks that would have been there, if the forest was in more of a natural condition.
Right. So what can people do to help change that?
Well, I think that, again, we focused on the private land side of that, right? And so, a lot of the things that Nick's talking about, what the term that we like to use is a resilient landscape, right? Basically getting your private piece in a condition where it can be more successful if a fire does come, but then B, we're also going to be more successful in suppressing that fire and protecting your home. And so, that's cleaning up your dead and down. That's, doing a lot of the home hardening that Nick was kind of talking about earlier, and that Brent talked about, putting screens on places that you can get embers. One of the things that the FireWise program really focuses on is that home hardening piece, because they did some studies and they found that homes were burning well away from the fire, could be a mile or more away from the fire, because they weren't burning because of direct flame impingement, meaning that the fire wasn't touching the house. It was an ember blowing a mile away, getting into a soffit vent, and then maybe a day or two later, the home actually touches off.
And that happened in that California fire, where you have houses that are burning a long ways away from the actual fire line, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw it in Paradise,
right.
We saw it in Palisades.
Yeah.
And so that's really the focus there. And the pitch, again, as the person that shows up on the fire and tries to do the things is, we want folks to help us be successful so that we can be successful in defending your house.
Right.
That is our intent, and that's our objective. And so, that work on the private side, that's really what we're driving. We have foresters that are doing that on a day-to-day basis. Similar to the finance folks, they like to give us firefighters a hard time that they fight fire year round.
Right. Yeah, I mean, another analogy I'm thinking about is like if a sheriff's deputy or the sheriff shows up at somebody's house and is like, you need to have locks on your doors. You need to have, you need to have not signs out in your yard that say, come rob me, I'm vulnerable. I mean, it's a...
Yes.
Yeah.
Help me, help you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you measure these, whether something will burn? Do you have a probe, or, how does that work,
So we track, one of our key metrics is what's called ERCs, which is emergency release, energy release component.
Okay.
Essentially, layman's term, firefighter, not a scientist, want to be clear. But they're measuring how much heat a given fuel will give off. And basically, something that's very, very dry, think of your wood stove. You burn wet wood, it smolders, it doesn't give out much heat, it doesn't do much.
Right, but I'm sorry, like literally you said, our stuff that is green is burnable.
Sure.
Locally.
Yes.
And is there literally a test for, you take an instrument out?
And, we track live fuel moistures. And so...
how do you do that? Like...
people smarter than me go out and actually, they literally will cut a chunk of wood, put it in an oven, measure the BTUs released, measure the amount of moisture in it. They put it in a kiln.
They actually have an instrument that tells you how much moisture is in something.
And
I've seen people use it on YouTube.
So at the end, what I'm looking at is a graph.
Got it. Okay.
So we're not actually out there doing the testing.
Okay.
Some of our federal partners are. They literally do the testing.
Okay.
But I'm looking at a graph that's tracking fuel moistures.
And that's being updated all the time?
Daily, yes.
Okay.
Daily, we look at two of our key metrics are the ERC that we talked about, the energy release component, and the burn index, So that's essentially the long-term trend is the ERC, and the burn index is the short-term, what's it going to do today?
Got it.
And that's wind and humidity and all those things.
Interesting.
And so we're making decisions on our dispatch levels, which is essentially how many engines are our dispatchers going to send on a given fire call based on that burn index any given day.
Huh.
Yeah, they have wood moisture meters that they can push the little probes in,
Yep.
and it sends a little shooter between, and it tells you how dense it is, and that's how you decide.
Just don't ask me how they work.
No. But I've seen a guy on YouTube use it. He was building a hovercraft,
Yeah.
and he got moisture in it, and he was trying to figure out how much moisture was in the
Yeah.
foam.
Yeah. Well, wow. Okay, lots of information. So, and really but at the end of the day, the story is, hey, we're coming into fire season. If you're a landowner out there and, make some effort, is that what you say, Nick? What would you?
I'd say if you aren't already engaged with your partners at ODF and Firewise or in your local fire district, definitely it's not too late. And I would say engage early and often with stewardship foresters and with staff and to get your questions answered. And I would say also, particularly with this fire season, to be particularly careful with use of fire, and as far as what you're doing recreationally, fireworks, anything that leaves the ground in Oregon is already illegal. You can already be charged for it criminally, but you could also, if you start a fire, could end up owing a few $1 million too.
Yeah, people are really good about following that.
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah. Yeah, but even, something as simple as mowing, mowing on a dry afternoon, a windy day. We get fires every year from that, blade strikes a rock, and, maybe mowing in the morning versus, the heat of the day. Those type of decisions can make a huge difference,
Right.
As far as, starting a fire. And so, just, to Dodsey's point, just the simple things can make a very big difference. And, we want you guys to be successful. We don't, if we're not fighting fire, it's actually a good thing. My crew wouldn't tell you that, but it's certainly true. And so, if we can minimize those human-caused fires with those little decisions, it can make a huge difference in the end.
So one question I had from earlier, just real quick, and that's, so like, if you loan him a generator, you guys trade back and forth, not him, but you guys trade. So like, who pays for the gas? I mean, so, how do you compensate for little expenses that happen like that?
Broadly, we have mutual aid agreements, which kind of set that out. We do our best not to charge each other.
Okay.
Right.
Because it
If he
just
sent you a
doesn't-
generator full
right.
of
So
gas,
you're not gonna.
I'll fill it with gas and
Yeah.
I'll try not to break it.
Yeah. Right. So you're not. But like, what happens if it does break when you have it? I mean, because
That's back to the agreement. So the agreement would probably say, if I break it, I fix it.
got it. Okay.
And I'm responsible for wear parts and fuel or
Yeah,
something to
so
that effect.
It's kind of like neighborly stuff, right?
Absolutely.
It's like loaning a tool to a neighbor,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
so you never get it back, essentially.
Sometimes. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Only when it's good stuff.
Right?
Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. And I guess the other lesson would be is like, if you're out there and you're like me and you get aggravated when people tell you what to do, maybe look at it in a positive manner. That it's like, these people might have information that is very helpful for me, and I can embrace the stuff that is good and swallow my pride a little bit and take it. So, all right. Anything else before we quit? Yeah. Hey,
Thank you.
thanks so much, Nick, for bringing JB, and thanks,
Yeah.
JB, for being here. So,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
we
Let's
get us
do
out
it.
here.
On this day, June 16th, 1882, 17-inch hailstones weighing 1 3/4 pounds fall in Iowa. That's a big hailstone. 17-inch hailstone.
Wow.
Ooh. That probably wrecked a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, 1882, they didn't have like windshields and stuff, at least, right? Remember the hailstone storm
Wallowa.
up there in Wallowa?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
man, that was wild.
Yeah, local-
1903, Ford Motors incorporates under Henry Ford. That's 1903. 2016, Philadelphia is the first city in the U.S. to pass a tax on sweetened drinks. 2023, scientific teams in the UK and Israel claim to have grown synthetic human embryos equivalent to that of a 14-day-old natural embryo, and that sparked a lot of controversy. 2024, on this day, 105-year-old Virginia Hislop graduates with a master's diploma in education from Stanford University. This is 83 years after she started college. The number one song in America on this day 20 years ago. I can't believe that this song's 20 years old. Hips Don't Lie by Shakira. And the quote of the day comes from Joyce Meyer. Patience is not simply the ability to wait. It's how we behave while we're waiting. One more time. Patience is not simply the ability to wait. It's how we behave while we're waiting.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Hey, thank you guys for being here with us. Thanks you guys for being here with us today. Yeah.
Yep.
And thank you guys. So, hey, on Thursday, a special treat. The guys that are shooting the Bigfoot movie that's happening, was it Bad Day for Bigfoot? I think is the name of that movie. They're just starting to shoot. And the two writers and the director will be here in the studio on Thursday. Yep. So that'll be fun. We'll see you then.